Welcome back. So in this video we're going to talk just a little bit about some of the negatives of home-based business. You know, the article's authors are quick to point out that it's not all peaches and cream. And we normally think of how convenient it would be to work from home, because basically all you got to do is get up out of bed and then walk over to your desk or your couch or wherever you've decided to do the work. Well, they point out that this is kind of one of the negative things of home-based businesses, is the fact that there is no separation of work and home. And I can certainly relate to this. I know that I'm not as efficient working at home as I am working from an office. Now, maybe if I had a bigger house with like a separate, a truly separate area where I could work, that might be a different thing. But I think most people that are doing a home-based business may not have that luxury, right? It may be that their workspace is very close to their sleeping area or whatever. And of course that has some negatives, right? I mean, there's the psychological impact, right? I know for me that transition of moving into an office kind of gets my mind ready for work mode. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And of course there's also kind of the freedom, right? When I'm at home, I feel free, I'm able to relax, I'm not worried about work. When you work out of the home though, you don't necessarily have that sense of freedom at home, seriousness at work. It all just kind of blends together, and it winds up really hurting your productivity. Another thing that you've got to remember is a lot of people just don't actually have a space to work. Again, you think about people that live in small studio apartments or studio condos in a large city, there just isn't a comfortable space to work. I know that I like to come into the office, well, quite frankly, because I have 3 very large desks that I work on, and I have more comfortable chairs in the office, so I like to come into work to do my work. It's just not as comfortable for me sitting up at the tables and the furniture that I have at home. And again, imagine living in a small studio apartment. What are you going to do, work on the floor or work on the couch that you use where you sit and eat and watch TV or something? It may not be that comfortable for you. A lot of people think that control over their time is going to suddenly materialize because they're not doing commutes every day. I can tell you from personal experience, this really doesn't work, right? You think that you're going to be at home and you're going to be the master of the time. I can guarantee if you've got a spouse or children, they are going to worry you to death the entire time you are at home, right? And I'm not going to tell you about my experiences unless you guys comment below, and then I'll make a separate video on it. But I was watching this thing on Twitter, and it was a guy having to work from home because the coronavirus shut down. And so what he did is he recorded every time his wife interrupted him at work. He just wrote it down on a notepad, and he actually started doing videos on this. And there was one time, like, his wife bothered him 24 different times during the day. He couldn't get anything done. And he started off one of his videos. He said, well, yeah, my wife's talking to her mother, so, it's been a pretty quiet morning. She's only bothered me 10 times before noon today. So that time doesn't really materialize, that kind of extra time, because there's so many other distractions. And if you have kids or something, I mean, let's not even get started. Kids are going to worry you to death. They don't understand that you have to work, right? I was doing a Zoom call the other day with someone, and she has a dog. And I'll tell you, the dog was barking. She was trying to work. The dog knocked her coffee cup over, all over a keyboard. I mean, it was a disaster, right? And of course your meetings are going to be longer. Again, I'm picking on Zoom because this is something that happened to me this week. We had this Zoom meeting the other day, and I'll tell you, it was like a train wreck. You had one guy who didn't know that his Zoom mic was on. He gets a phone call from his wife. He takes it. We can't get him to be quiet because he can't hear to begin with, much less hearing over Zoom. So we can't hear because he's talking to his wife. He doesn't realize we're all shouting and waving at him because he's not paying attention. Another guy had dogs barking in the background. Somebody else couldn't get their phone to work, so they wound up calling in to somebody else and on speaker, and there was echo back and forth. I really wish I had recorded because it was an absolute train wreck, this meeting, okay? But that's what happens when you're working from home. And so instead of it being like a half-an-hour meeting, it wound up being like a 2-hour meeting because of all the nonsense that had occurred. So you may actually wind up spending more time working when you're working from home. A lot of people, and I think we see this with the coronavirus outbreak, need social time. They need social time for their mental health, they need social time for productivity, and all that kind of stuff. So, if you're working from home, you may not get that kind of interaction of having colleagues at the office that you can chat, at the water cooler and stuff like that. Now, there are a lot of home-based businesses when I was in Los Angeles, and a lot of those people would leave their homes and go to like a Starbucks and that way they could talk to strangers and things like that. So, but the social aspect of not being around people, for some people, can be very difficult. I know personally, I prefer to work, alone and not be disturbed, but I may be unique in that regard. The other thing is, people that work from home because they're working on their own may not have the same opportunities for corporate professional development, right? A lot of corporations have training programs, training exercises, and so let's be honest, if you're working out of your office and your home, you're not going to, of course you have access to training, but you'll have to pay for it, and you probably won't pay for it, so your skills can get a little bit rusty. Now, a good solution to that for all home-based entrepreneurs is this really cool YouTube channel with free videos. It's called Dr. D University. And those of you watching that haven't should probably subscribe so that you can take advantage of all this free training resources that's out there that I'm providing for you. Did you subscribe yet? Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Another thing that can be stressful for home-based businesses is, there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty about getting a paycheck, right? A lot of it is project-based or contract labor, and let's face it, if you don't get any clients, you don't get any money. And this is a kind of a stress that you don't exactly have to face to the same extent in a corporation. At least in a corporation, you've got to screw up enough to get fired. Whereas a home-based business owner has got to be really great to attract new customers. So that's kind of a problem. And again, there's also marital problems in addition to the disturbances from a spouse or a child. When you're around the same people all the time, it doesn't matter how much you love them. Within 10 days, you're going to hate them anyhow, right? So being around your spouse and your children and the dog and everything else all the time with no escape because you're working from home can be very, very stressful. So it can aggravate an already very tense situation of running a business. So these are some of the kind of downsides of having a home-based business. Hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, make sure you give me a thumbs up. That's like a like. You can also comment down below, and make sure you subscribe. In our next video, we're going to talk a little bit about their data sources and their methodology. See you in the next video.